The Bears fired Shane Waldren, offense coordinator. A couple interesting developments from this firing. Since week 7, their bye week, since that time, last in yards per drive, offensive touchdowns per game, EPA per dropback, completion percentage, and sacks allowed per game. They're 0-3 since the bye. Also, these people from ESPN Chicago, they're called Waddlehead and Sylvie. They quote tweeted Adam Schefter's report of Waldron getting fired, and they said, after talking to a few people with knowledge of the situation, players went to Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles, asking them to make the change at offensive coordinator. There have also been a few veteran players requesting that Tyson Bagent starts.
Holy shit.
Tyson Bagent is terrible.
Even a few weeks ago, I know maybe it was during the bye week, Caleb Williams, maybe a couple other players, they went to Shane Waldron saying they wanted a more aggressive offense. They saw early on or earlier than we are now, like this offense isn't working. Tyson Bagent's crazy. Tyson Bagent's insane.
We don't know how true that is. Hopefully it's
We don't
not
know how true that
Hopefully
is.
that part is not
I mean,
true
they did
at all.
ask Matt Eberflus in the press conference, like, what'd you think about sitting Caleb? He said no, which I think is the right answer, but it's been talked about.
This is what I got to say about Caleb, because there's so many layers to this. I think the one thing I want to speak to when it comes to Caleb Williams is that, first of all, let's make this clear. Caleb Williams is not playing well. He's one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks in the NFL. He's holding on to the ball forever. There's no quarterback that has taken more sacks that is starting right now than Caleb Williams on long dropbacks, 4 seconds or more. He's holding on to the ball and he's taking these sacks. Also, the offensive design, the route concepts, everything is vertical. There's nothing in front of him. There's no crossing routes. There's nothing over the middle of the field. These routes are very static. The offensive design is very poor, and it's not putting Caleb in a position to be successful, because this year on throws under 2.5 seconds, he has 5 touchdowns to 0 interceptions, and he's been one of the most efficient quarterbacks on those dropbacks. So he can play within structure, but he has so many dropbacks over 2.5 seconds, and he's getting pressured on those, and he has 5 touchdowns to 5 interceptions on those, and that's where the mistakes have come. This is just an overarching thing that I've noticed. Everybody is so quick to hate on Caleb Williams because he was a hyped up prospect, and he has a lot of other things going on, like painting his nails and things that people don't deem masculine. And I don't want to make this like a political thing, but the media was propping up Caleb Williams all offseason. This is the best situation that a first overall pick has ever been in. If he fails in this situation, there's no excuses. You're already making bold claims about Caleb without even seeing an offensive snap play out. And the reality of the situation is that Caleb Williams is not playing well. But what's the bigger issue in this? It has been the offensive design. It has been the offensive line. And people have not adjusted their thinking to the Bears offense. All they've adjusted is that Caleb Williams sucks. It's not that the Bears situation is actually much worse than all of us thought it was going to be. I think we can all admit that right now. Yes, they have good talent at receiver. It doesn't matter how talented you are. If your coaching sucks, you're going to stink. It's going to look like an unwatchable product. And right now, there's a lot of victory lapping on Caleb Williams because he is somebody that is very polarizing. And I don't want to excuse his play because I don't think he has been playing well. But you look at the Bears organization. They drafted Mitch Trubisky with John Fox. The very next year, Fox was fired. Matt Nagy came in. They drafted Justin Fields with Matt Nagy. The very next year, he was fired. Matt Eberflus came in. They drafted Caleb Williams with Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus, I think, will get fired after this year, and there's going to be a new coach that comes in. The Bears have not put any of their quarterbacks they've recently drafted with a stable coaching staff whatsoever. So they have to hope that they nail this next head coaching hire, or Caleb Williams is in some real danger of panning out like every other Bears quarterback has.
The Chicago Bears have been one of the worst franchises of the last 20, 30 years. Of course, they have one of the most historic teams with the 85 Bears because of that defense and what it meant to football at the time. But since then, they've had no real success. Now you look at this, of course you have Brian Urlacher, they went to the Super Bowl, but really the quarterback position has always been the main blemish when it comes to talking about Chicago Bears. Now, you mentioned some stats already. Over the last 3 weeks, they've been dead last in essentially every single passing metric. Last in EPA per play, success rate, dropback EPA, dropback success rate. When it comes to rush EPA, I believe they were 19th. They just have not been good at all these last 3 weeks. Now, I highlight the last 3 weeks because it's been against the Commanders, the Cardinals, and the New England Patriots. Now, these are all three defense that we would deem either average or slightly above average. These aren't game-changing level defenses. They've had some highs. Definitely, I'm talking about the Commanders. And, of course, the Cardinals. They've definitely had some highs this year as well. New England, I feel like as the season's gone on, we've seen their defense not play as well as it did early on. But, of course, they're still a respectable unit. With the Bears' offensive talent, we anticipated a lot better. I anticipated a lot better. But this offensive line is definitely horrendous. And Shane Waldren, by far and away, is the guy that I point the finger at, number one. You have so much talent on this offense. How is it possible that we're not generating anything? Also, if I'm not mistaken, they've been last in yards. They've gone 23 consecutive possessions without a touchdown. They rank third worst in the NFL with 278 yards a game. That's terrible. That's horrendous. And again, DeAndre Swift, we were critical of him early on. He's been their best offensive player. Excuse me, I just spit everywhere. He's been their best offensive player since week 3. Roma Dunze is the guy that we look at on this offense that has maybe the most juice. And honestly, the guy who doesn't get mentioned, Cole Kmet. I think Cole Kmet is a pretty solid tight end as well. They do have a lot of talent on this team. Now that there will be a new play caller in Chicago, I'm a lot more optimistic. And honestly, for DJ Moore's sake, I think that DJ Moore will be the main beneficiary of that. Also, hopefully we stop seeing Keenan Allen on go routes because obviously we know that he is a win underneath an intermediate kind of guy. He's made a living off being an elite route runner and a separator in that area. So why not put him in those positions to succeed? Shane Waldron was a disaster, and give JSN his flowers. He called it very early on. Good luck to them. But Caleb Williams also has not been great. And obviously you have to look at him and give him some blame these last couple of weeks. You do need to do a better job of getting the ball out there, but that also goes right in hand with scheme and offensive play calling. The design needs to be, go ahead, drop back a couple steps and let the ball go. This can be timing routes and everything. Look at Tua and how he's made a living. A lot of that Miami offense, although now things are starting to get figured out, it's a lot of timing and getting the ball out quickly and having your receivers go after the catch. DJ Moore is one of the best yards after the catch wide receivers in the league, and we haven't seen that this year because they're not doing a lot of that this year. So when you take a step back and not go and just immediately point the finger at the quarterback like we've done for a numerous amount of situations where, yeah, it could be true. Caleb Williams has not played well, but there also can be a bigger picture. And this one, I think they made the right choice by letting Shane Waldron go.
Now, do you feel more confident now that Shane Waldron is gone because the offense coordinator that's replacing him is the offense coordinator that called plays for the Panthers last year when Frank Reich was fired?
Oh, God bless.
No, but I think Shane Waldron getting fired, at least there's going to be room for next year. We get a whole new play calling. And because this year, the defense is good. I still think the defense is good, but without offense, you can't win shit. And especially when your offense is this level of bad. So at least, there's something to carry over into next season, hopefully, because, now the Jets, where now their defense is terrible, you can't really bank on it year to year. But the hope is that at least now, we have Shane Waldron now. We don't have to worry about it. Like, Matt Canada was a concern for the Patriots, for the Steelers for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they finally fired him. But they went into the season with him. At least now we don't have to worry about that with the Bears moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, majority of teams, like, there's some outliers, but most teams, like, your defense, more so than your offense, just changes so much year to year, whether it's coaching, whether it's personnel change, whether it's players regressing or progressing. It's really difficult. Like, even the fact that the Jets were so fucking dominant for 2 years in a row, you don't usually see, right? Like, look at the Eagles. Like, last year, they were dog shit. This year, they look amazing. When they went to the Super Bowl, they were decent. Like, there's all these different factors that go into it. But talking about Caleb and talking about Shane Waldron, number one, thank God. He deserved to be fired.
Facts.
He should not have been the offense coordinator for this team. They are 30th in offensive DVOA this season. They have been bad really across the board outside of a couple games against some bad defenses when DeAndre Swift was really able to get going, open some things up for the passing game. But since the bye, which is when you're supposed to reset, what's working, what's not working. Let's double down on what is working. You mentioned it, Drew. These three opponents they played, Commanders, Cardinals, and Patriots, they've scored 15 points, 9 points, and 3 points. Caleb's been sacked 18 times over those 3 games, and I think that's where a lot of this conversation goes, is about the pressure he's facing and the sacks he's facing, because I think the offensive line's fine. I actually don't think the offensive line is like the number one issue with what's going on in this team. I do think it's the play design, and the reason why Caleb's holding on the ball for so long is because he's waiting on guys to get open. But when you look at the offensive line this season, they are 14th in terms of pass block win rate. And in those true pass sets that you highlighted against the Denver Broncos being number 1, Chicago's 8th, the 8th best offensive line in terms of when it's a straight up passing play. They've been the 8th best offensive line. So it's not just Caleb Williams back there. 2 seconds goes by. Oh my God, I'm getting pressured like he's fucking, Geno Smith, CJ Stroud, that level of bad offensive line play. A lot of this has been on Caleb Williams this season. I mean, he's faced the 5th most pressures in the NFL. He's taken the most sacks in the NFL, but on a per dropback, he's only been pressured on 36% of dropbacks. That's 15th, right? So it's not every single play is under pressure. It's been about league average, and his offensive line's been about league average to above league average. So a lot of that is on Caleb Williams. And I think part of the concern people had, which was valid coming out of USC, is he's doing all this crazy shit at USC. He's holding the ball for 8 seconds back there. He's making 5 guys miss. Will that translate in the NFL? And for the most part, it hasn't translated, right? The only player who has a higher or a longer time to throw when he's under pressure is Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson can do that because it's fucking Lamar Jackson. He's a one-on-one athlete and he can make dudes miss. But Caleb Williams hasn't been able to do that. If we want to get really nasty this season, because there's some metrics that think Caleb has been one of the worst quarterbacks in football. Since 2021, Caleb has the lowest catchable throw rate in the NFL, 63.6%. The second, third, fourth worst, Bryce Young, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, all of them are at 67%. So we're talking about a 4% difference between what Caleb's doing and what the second, third, fourth worst quarterbacks catchable throw rate. And we're talking about, some of the biggest busts in the NFL so far through their first couple of years. And also his pressure to sack ratio is the worst in the NFL since 2021 at nearly 31%. Caleb hasn't been good. I know I saw you went and looked at all of his sacks. I also went and looked at all of his sacks. I thought so there was 9 total sacks. One was he rushed for 0 or 1 yards. So I didn't count that. So 8 total sacks that I counted. 5 I did not think were on Caleb Williams. I thought 5 was just he was getting beat. Play design wasn't there, or more than anything, the pressure just got there way too quick for him to really do anything. There were 3 plays where I did think there's some opportunity there, right? I think the first sack of the game, I believe, he had DeAndre Swift on a check down. He looked at it. He just didn't throw it. He ended up getting sacked. He had one where DJ Moore was one-on-one with an outside receiver on the left-hand side. You had single high safety. DJ Moore beat Christian Gonzalez one-on-one. He didn't throw the ball. And then the other play, which is 50-50, the one where he rolled out to the left side, and I thought he should have just threw the ball away. There was 2 routes going on. Both were fucking covered. There was no way either of them were going to get open. He just held and held and held. I wish he threw it away there. Young quarterback. I'm not going to blame him. So if you want to take that away, that's fair.
Yeah, but that play was it speaks to the offensive design. It's just being so dumb. That was a speed out where DJ Moore runs 3 yards up the field and it's a stick route. So he just goes, stops, and turns his head. Mm-hmm. You're not creating any separation by doing that. And then Roma Dunze, it's a high-low concept, and Roma Dunze is running like a corner route, and the corner has outside leverage, and it's blanketed. Yep. These routes are static. You're not, DJ Moore is a receiver that I think is best when he's on the move. Get him in space, get him going, he's fast, and let him, eat after the catch. That's just not a staple in this offense. It's clear out routes, it's static routes. And yeah, Caleb, I think he should have thrown the ball there. But also, it's that's a sack that he took. Also, nothing is open. There's nowhere to go with the ball, so might as well throw it away. But it's a play in a down where even if he took a sack or threw it away, it doesn't really make much of a difference.
It might have been 3rd down too, that play.
Yeah, it really wouldn't have made much of a difference. So that's what it's all these things work in harmony. Caleb Williams is holding the ball too long. Why? Because nothing is open. That's really what it's been. With all these receivers, they are not being used correctly. Nothing is open down the field, and he has to hold on to the ball. And Daniel Jeremiah mentioned this great point, is that I actually want to see more USC Caleb Williams. I want to see him get out on the move. There were some sacks that he took that I'm yo, Caleb, I know that you can get out of that. you can already be ahead of the schedule and you can start rolling out and you can start running. Like, I want you to play free. And it goes back to what Justin Fields said last year about this coaching staff, about Matt Eberflus, is that he wasn't playing like himself. He wasn't playing free. And I feel like when quarterbacks play for defensive head coaches, it's coached into you to not mess up. Don't screw up, because we're a defensive team, just like play within the flow of it. So you're not getting the best out of your quarterback. You're not allowing Caleb to be Caleb. You're making him feel very restricted and play very uniform, and that's not his game. He can do it, but if those quick developing concepts aren't there, now you just have somebody that's just sitting in mud and just like, you know, just going through everything and not finding nothing open. So all those things work in harmony, and those stats are very bad. They're very bad, and they don't look good right now. And you definitely have to wonder if this is something that can be fixed, if you're hoping that the confidence doesn't get shaken up too much, because this is very much a demoralizing season.
I think he'll be okay. Listen, oh my God.
What the hell's in that bev, bro?
Clear it out.
Nah, man. I went to this party and it was outside.
Oh, that's
and
crazy.
So yeah, I had a jacket, but dude,
Where?
it was a house party in Patterson.
No invite?
Huh?
I'll go out to P-Town.
No, it was my friend. He doesn't know you.
So?
He posted on his Insta, "If I don't know you, you cannot come to the party." I'm sorry. Like,
There's no +1.
nah, like, it was legit. Like, he just wanted his like close friends and family. Like,
What was the occasion?
It was his birthday.
Oh, no.
It was only like 15
okay.
of us. Yeah.
And now you're
literally,
sick. Damn.
Fuck it, we're here though. Listen, this really just sounds like deja vu. Like, we've seen it with Justin Fields. Same thing. Like, Justin Fields getting there, you know, the situation was terrible and he was talented, but of course his throwing wasn't the best. Caleb comes in here, he's talented, throwing hasn't been the best, but the coaching has also been terrible. I think you got to look at this offense. Like, we can throw, like, I can sit here and I can defend DJ Moore to the day I die, right? You guys can sit here, you can defend Caleb to the day you die. But, like, it really is a trickle down from just Waldren to Caleb to Keenan, DJ, Rome to the offensive line. Like, this whole team has just not been in sync all year. And, you know, I guess it starts in training camp with the coach, with guys trying to get in sync. I guess it starts there for sure. But he should have been fired weeks ago. Like, this offense has not gotten better. Like,
It's gotten worse.
Yeah, it's projectively gotten worse. So I think this team is just sitting here. You fired Waldron. So it's good. You can go in there. You can try to find somebody new. Yeah, I had to get that one out. That one was nasty. Mm-hmm. But you can try to find somebody new in the offseason, but you can chalk this season up to an L. And that's the most disappointing part about all this. Like, we are visibly frustrated at the fact that Chicago coming into this year, we thought was going to be a fucking gold mine. We thought this team was going to shoot for the moon. The schedule was light. We're thinking like, oh, this team could sneak a playoff game in. Caleb was minus 1,000 to win offensive rookie of the year. He was getting all the tags of, you know, generational. They was calling him Patrick Mahomes. We get that all out. He's not that at the moment. But what we've seen is we saw Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville get Urban Myers, and he was probably the worst quarterback in football. Then bounce back with Doug Peterson. Now, he did have a bad drop back year the next year, but we've seen bounce backs before, you know, and I don't think this would shake Caleb at all. I just think you have to find the right guy in the system. Even Justin Fields, who wasn't playing elite or nothing like that, but he went to Pittsburgh and he was playing fine. He was playing confident. He was playing with more, you know, just within himself under Mike Tomlin. Yeah. So, like, we've seen bounce backs before, even to a lesser degree, you know. So now I think, you know, Caleb kind of has that, like, just that type of swag where you just put the right guy in the room with him. You know, I think if you get this receiving group to get on the same page as him, I think this offense could definitely blossom because the talent is there. But just going into this year, I mean, every week it's a new thing. It's the receivers aren't getting open. It's the play calling is shit. It's Caleb's holding on to the ball too long. It's always something new, everything different. Week by week, it's just been a disaster after disaster. At one point, they were blaming DeAndre Swift and the running backs for not being able to run the ball. Like, it's always something with this offense. And honestly, you got to just chalk it up to the whole offense is just ass. They're all not performing to what they. And it's a bad thing because that defense is good. That defense has talent, good. You know, and that defense has kept them in some games. Like, I look at that Houston Texan game as an opportunity where they really had a chance to win that game. The Bears defense played really well. You know, you look at that Commanders game and shit. Before the Hail Mary, they had the game. Like, the game was in there. Like, they've had opportunities where they could have really won these type of games, and this offense just hasn't been on the same page from quarters 1 to 4. Even that Commanders game, he was great in the fourth quarter. Ass from quarters 1 to 3. Titans game, solid in the fourth. Ass from quarters 1, 2, 3. It just hasn't been a consistent, cohesive unit all year. And you hate to see it with a group that has veterans like Keenan, DJ Moore. Cole Kmet isn't a veteran, but he's been on that roster for a couple years. You know, you have a guy like whatever.
Eberflus.
Yeah, who last year had this defense playing at a high level to end the year. You know, he had this defense playing at a high level. He thought he had the locker room going into this year. It just hasn't been that. So you mentioned the guy who is their offensive coordinator now, was on the Panthers roster last year. Like Dale's mentioned, God bless. I don't know if it gets better from that, but I think you get a full reset. You go into this offseason thinking, okay, last year, that was just a fluke. We bring in a new offensive coordinator. We bring in a new head coach in general, and we try to run the shit back.
I'll give you your flowers. You said that's one of those losses against the Commanders that could ruin a season. They have not won since. You cooked.
Listen, that shit was demoralizing. You had Tyreek on the side going crazy. Like, he's a tweak out, bro. God bless his soul, man.
I already know who the Bears' next head coach is going to be.
Who's it going to be?
John Gruden?
It's going to be Cliff Kingsbury. I think he's going to be the next head coach of the Bears.
I don't hate that at all.
With what he's doing with the Commanders,
He's back to getting a head coaching job off the ripper.
I think
so.
what he's doing with the
He'll get
Commanders
interviews,
is one of the
sure.
best offenses in the NFL.
You don't think that he'll want to stick around with Jaden for a little bit?
He get another
It's a
head coaching
possibility.
job. I don't know.
But if the Bears offer him that head coaching job, the connection and ties he has with Caleb Williams already, dating back to the USC days.
Honestly, it's really how much confidence does Cliff have in himself? Because Ben Johnson could sit there and be like, shit, I'm going to have one of the most efficient offenses year in and year out. I'll wait for the perfect situation. Cliff's like, I've had some good years. I've had some terrible years. 2 years ago, I was out of this league. Now I have a chance to become a head coach again.
Does Chicago not remind you of last year's Detroit Pistons, too?
Nah, they're better than the Pistons.
Jesus Christ.
Pistons fucking lost 30 games in a row.
Well, it's NBA, 82 games.
I also think Ben Johnson is not taking the Bears job.